Thank you, Katie, and good morning, everyone. I'm Jonathan Bowles. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for an Urban Future, and I'm so excited to introduce our keynote speaker, Deputy Mayor for Housing and Planning, Leila Bozorg. Deputy Mayor Bozorg is leading what is arguably the most important task in city government today, addressing the city's affordable housing crisis. She is already off to an impressive start. Among other things, she led the rollout of the Mamdani administration's ambitious block-by-block affordable housing roadmap, which, among other things, includes new support to turn neglected rental properties into affordable co-ops and an expansion of community land trusts. These are just a few of several big things that she and her team have already accomplished on housing policy in barely 7 months. A big thank you to her and her team for moving up the timing of her remarks today at our request, and an even bigger thanks for the important work she is doing in City Hall. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Mayor Bozorg.
Thank you, Jonathan. And yes, happy to change my slot with Speaker Menon, who is managing what will likely be a very long hearing on our horse carriage situation in the city. And yes, my name is Leila Bozorg. It's okay that you butchered my last name, but I will note I really like the size of this podium. My last name in Farsi actually means big. And usually when I'm standing at podiums, I'm reminded of the irony of that. So this is nice. But thank you. It is actually a real pleasure to be here today. Thank you for the Center for the Urban Future, not just for having me, but for having this really important conversation on economic mobility at this very specific time for our city and in our city. It really does feel like the right moment to be talking about these issues. It's also nice to be around so many familiar faces, people who I know have spent their lives and their entire careers thinking about how to make our city more affordable, more equitable, and more prosperous. Over the next few hours, I was looking at the agenda, it looks amazing. You're gonna be hearing this subject and have it taken apart from a lot of different angles. Asset building and wealth creation, opening doors to opportunity-rich neighborhoods, what housing instability means to a CUNY student trying to finish a degree without a stable place to sleep. My own colleague, Dina Levy, Commissioner of HPD, is going to go deeper on home ownership and asset building strategies that we're working on together. So I thought I'd lay out some of what we're working on in the broader housing and planning portfolio and why we're working on it, and then let the rest of the day test whether we're on the right path. As Deputy Mayor for Housing and Planning, I have the privilege of leading the housing and land use strategies in our city. That includes the New York City Public Housing Authority, the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, the Housing Development Corporation, the Department of City Planning, the Department of Buildings, the Landmark Preservation Commission, the Public Design Commission, the Office of Housing Recovery Operations, the Mayor's Office to Protect Tenants, and more. I say leading, but the truth is the people who work in that alphabet soup of agencies do a lot of the hard work. The planning, the financing, the reviewing, approving, inspecting, and caring for the homes New Yorkers really rely on. My job, of course, is to set the direction, clear the obstacles in their way, make sure they have the resources they need to deliver, and then hold them to the highest standards for execution. A good deal of what I'm going to describe today is the work of hundreds and hundreds of dedicated public servants. But as Jonathan noted, it's also the work of many advocates and partners in this room, because none of this work gets done by government alone, and many of our best ideas that we've been able to execute on and move recently has been done through immense collaboration. So I'm very grateful to get to do this work alongside colleagues in government, but alongside each of you as well. Now, housing, as has been discussed a lot recently, is, of course, at the center of nearly every affordability challenge facing New York City today. It determines whether families can stay in the neighborhoods they love, whether employers can recruit and retain workers, whether New York remains the city of opportunity it has always aspired to be. Not that anyone in this room needs the reminder, but let me note the challenging context that we're operating within today. We're facing an unprecedented and severe housing shortage. More than half of renters in the city are considered rent burden. Nearly 90,000 of our neighbors sleep in municipal shelters every night, including over 28,000 children. Too many people live with substandard conditions or in overcrowded apartments because they cannot find an option that fits their needs. And NYCHA's capital backlog, an incredibly important stock of deeply affordable housing, has grown to a mind-rattling $78 billion. That's a number representing leaky pipes, frequent heat and hot water outages, systems well past their useful life, and other unsafe living conditions. The federal funding for all of public housing nationwide doesn't even begin to cover a fraction of our need in New York City. These are housing statistics, but they are also economic statistics. And they are also socioeconomic statistics if you dig deeper, because there are racial disparities beneath each of those facts I just shared. We tend to treat housing and economic opportunity as separate problems. While they are not the same problem, they are deeply interconnected. A home shapes which schools a child can walk to, which jobs are close enough to be worth taking, whether a family can absorb an unexpected bill without losing everything, and whether the money left at the end of the month goes towards a future and saving for that future, or towards survival for today. A home in this city, more than most, cannot be thought of as a prize you collect once you've made it. It is the precondition for making it at all. That conviction sits beneath everything my agencies are working on. Our housing plan is an important piece of a broader affordability vision for the city, a vision that recognizes that meaningfully taking on our housing crisis is among the most powerful economic mobility strategies the city can put forward. The mayor said it more memorably when we rolled out our housing plan. When New Yorkers can afford a home, they can afford to dream. And you see the mechanics of the housing crisis in almost any family's budget. For those who earn the least, the first of the month is truly scary, and for good reason. They're living one rent increase away from losing the block they helped build. When rent takes too large a share of paycheck, everything downstream contracts. There's less for childcare, less for the commute to a better job, less to put towards a down payment or a cushion against catastrophe. The same logic scales up to the entire economy. When workers can't afford to live near where jobs are growing, employers cannot hire and keep the people they need. This has massive implications for our economy. And when young people cannot find a foothold, they defer building a life here or they build it somewhere else entirely. Now, for the last century, building a life in America has meant striving to own a home as a means to build and pass down wealth. And for much of the century, government decided who could take part. This history is well known, especially by people in this room, but it's worth a quick Cliff Notes reminder. Starting in the 1930s, federal agencies drew maps grading Black and mixed-race neighborhoods as too risky to lend in, the practice we now call redlining. After the war, the FHA and the VA underwrote suburban homeownership boom that built the modern middle class while denying those same loans to Black families and endorsing the covenants that kept neighborhoods segregated. Because home equity is the largest asset most families ever hold, and because wealth compounds and is inherited, exclusion in one generation has become exclusion in the next. That is the vicious cycle of inequality whose legacy we continue to be faced with today. It was built by policy and it was intentional, and that legacy remains measurable. The median white family in the country holds roughly 6 times the wealth of the median Black family, and the gap in home ownership is now the widest it's been in over 50 years. And asset wealth is only part of the story. Where a family can afford to live also shapes what schools their children can attend, which social networks they can join, and which jobs are within reach. Everyone in this room knows what Raj Chetty and Opportunity Insights work has shown, how the neighborhood a child grows up in has significant causal effects on the prospects for upward mobility, and that those effects accumulate with each year of a childhood spent there. Exclusionary zoning and generations of segregation confine too many families to the places with the least investment. So housing in this country does not simply reflect opportunity, it distributes it. In a city that is nearly 70% renters and among the most segregated in the nation, that inheritance runs deep, and it continues to fall hardest on Black and brown New Yorkers. If housing distributes opportunity, then our work is to democratize it. Now, New York City is one that has long embraced an expansive vision of home ownership, one that values generational stability and the multiple forms that stability might take. Consider a rent-stabilized family passing the lease on to the next generation, ensuring financial stability in the face of an ongoing housing emergency and broader gentrification. Or the nation's first limited equity co-ops, including Penn South, where civil rights leaders gathered in community rooms to plan the March on Washington and fight for equity and opportunity for all. Or even more recently, consider a NYCHA tenant association collectively visioning what should happen to their homes as PACT or the Preservation Trust delivers millions in new investments stemming from long-term, automatically renewing federal funding contracts that stabilize their buildings for generations to come. These are all ways that New Yorkers specifically have been able to express ownership over their homes, their neighborhoods, and their city. Having a safe and secure home is the foundation of so much opportunity here. And these housing models have not only made New York City the city it is today, but they can offer a type of stability otherwise hard to find for those who earn low or moderate incomes. But I would be remiss to not mention that just as it has nationally, ownership and opportunity in our city also has a cruel side to its history. One of exclusion, redlining, downzonings, and other policy choices, intentional, that locked people out of neighborhoods to protect what some believe is only theirs. New York City remains, again, among the most segregated cities in the country. The stability that is at the root of our success stories has not been evenly distributed. And that challenge is one that our administration is committed to addressing, partly by doing what New York has always done, recognizing that ownership is a complex idea that can take many forms. And as a city, we can and must embrace and build upon all the forms we have here. As many of you know, we recently released Block by Block, our administration's housing plan, which will guide our housing and land use strategies during our time in office and set projects in motion that will be carried out over the next decade. While there is lots of room to iterate on the ideas together, it's a roadmap for meeting this moment with both bold ambition and what someone recently called, and I'm very proud of this, rigorous pragmatism. It recognized that solving our housing shortage means more than building buildings. It means working holistically to create a more affordable city and helping New Yorkers build stable, prosperous lives. Now, underpinning our policy approach are a few key values I want to share. First, that tenant rights are the foundation of an affordable, creative, and livable New York City. Second, that New York needs to grow, and adding more housing options for more people across a wider range of neighborhoods is critical. That we can improve life for those already here and welcome new neighbors by expanding our housing supply and new housing of all types. Third, that to address our housing challenges at scale, we need to use both public and private sector tools and resources while ensuring that the public sector is in the driver's seat and responsive to inclusive, community-driven visions. We bring these values together in what we refer to as an all-of-the-above approach. With the depth of need across the city, we truly cannot afford to leave any potential solutions on the table. Now, this is an approach that's been theoretical for many years. Amid policy debates over the right way to solve our housing challenges, different policies have often been pitted against each other. If you support new housing, you're putting tenant stability at risk. If you support tenant rights, you're discouraging development. If you support workers and better jobs, you're stymieing housing growth. While we, of course, have to make difficult decisions when allocating our scarce resources, the truth is we can and must do it all by fighting, as the mayor has said, for the tenants of today and the tenants of tomorrow. And underpinning our entire administration's approach is a commitment to public excellence, because it shouldn't take years to get a permit to begin construction or lease up an already constructed apartment to a low-income New Yorker. This does not mean cutting corners on safety or fairness. It means building the partnerships and capacity to work smarter, to be more efficient, and to do the necessary things faster. So through these approaches, Block by Block aims to bring the scale and urgency of housing solutions that New Yorkers deserve. That includes the ambitious goal of building 200,000 new affordable homes over the next decade and preserving 200,000 more over the same time period. And these goals are backed by historic levels of city capital investment, starting with $22 billion over 5 years, including $5.6 billion of investment specifically for NYCHA homes. These investments will also put New Yorkers to work. We estimate by creating 200,000 new affordable homes, this will generate an average of 30,000 construction jobs per year and nearly 13,000 permanent jobs. These are jobs in the trades, in manufacturing, in engineering, in architecture, in design and planning, and across the many small businesses that support every project. And as we implement the Construction Justice Act, which sets a minimum wage and benefit floor for affordable housing production, we will ensure that these are good, safe, well-paid, high-quality jobs. Housing allows the rest of our economy to work. New York has always drawn the best talent, business, ideas, but that can only continue to be true if people powering that innovation can afford to live here. More affordable housing means more workers who can live close to their workplace and contribute to our city. So creating more housing near jobs and near transit helps New Yorkers reach more economic opportunities as well. That's why as we deliver more housing, we also must ensure that every part of the city, especially areas well connected to transit, are part of that growth. But jobs are only part of the story of wealth creation. I want to come back to the idea of the deeper promise of housing and how that deeper promise of housing is connected to ownership. This idea, the chance to build wealth that stays with a family or within a community and passes to future generations. This is where democratizing economic opportunity can get concrete in our plan. Through Block by Block, we're investing in affordable home ownership, protecting rent-stabilized homes, creating new affordable co-op programs, and supporting community ownership models in a way that is virtually unprecedented for a mayoral administration. One new tool for long-term ownership, which I'm sure Commissioner Levy will speak more about this afternoon or this morning, is called Our Home, a new program that builds on the Affordable Neighborhood Cooperative Program to promote co-op housing that gives tenants control and ownership over the future of their homes. We are also deepening support for community land trusts across a variety of programs. We're creating pathways for CLT ownership on existing projects and identifying public land that is suitable for transfer to CLTs. Just earlier this week, we announced the administration's first designation of a public site for affordable housing to a development team that includes This Land Is Ours CLT. And we're providing technical assistance to both new and existing CLTs so that they can succeed as long-term stewards of these projects. Finally, we're also supporting legislation to advance these goals, including the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act and the Safer Homes Act. And we're excited to be working with Councilmember Narasan Kopa to see it advance in the council. For those not familiar, this legislation would give community partners the first opportunity to buy certain distressed properties when they go on the market. If it passes, it can create an important layer of protection for tenants of distressed properties against further speculation. Now, let me say one of the hard parts out loud. $22 billion is the largest 5-year housing commitment the city has ever made. But that is just the start, and our broader vision will require us to stretch every single public dollar. We'll be working to drive down costs in what it takes to build affordable housing. We'll be developing and piloting new financing tools like our revolving smart loan, increasing density where it makes sense, and allowing cross subsidies for market rate housing to deliver affordability without a single dollar of city capital. Some of these ideas are less popular, but they are a necessary reality of our housing crisis. And none of this gets built, of course, by government alone. It gets built with people in this room, with lenders willing to take the first risk, the affordable housing developers willing to forge new partnerships and engage with social housing models, the CLTs who will steward homes for generations, and the advocates who will hold us to the highest standards of dignity and self-determination for communities, and the organizations working to innovate and create complementary tools to support economic mobility as part of that self-determination. We're only 6.5 months into the admin, and we know we have to move with urgency. So to be clear, I am not asking you to stand by and watch us do this work. I am asking you to build with us. And you have the rest of this morning to think and talk collectively about how. For generations in this city, housing and wealth have been bound together in a cycle that has lifted some families while locking out others from prosperity around us. Everything I have described today, the new homes we will build, the tenants we will protect, the NYCHA homes we want to modernize, the buildings we can preserve, the co-ops and land trusts, and first real chances at ownership we want to create, are meant to break that cycle. We want this work to create a more affordable city, but we also want it to support a growing economy while democratizing economic opportunities. Success, to me, looks like a child who is sleeping in a shelter tonight, having the ability to grow up here and own a piece of the neighborhood and city they choose to call home, in whatever form that might take. Not as a miracle or as an exception, but as the ordinary result of a city that decided, block by block, to build, invest, and grow for its people and those who want to call it home, and especially those who live at the margins today. That, to me, is what advancing economic mobility through affordable housing can look like. Thank you very much.